Well, now we come to the nature section. I was expecting some treats here, and I haven't been disappointed. It's a very strong section. And the first image, blue tit feeding fledgling, is one of the strongest ones in the set. This is a gorgeous image. The little fluffy grey fledgling with its little grey head hasn't got its colours yet, but looking in beautiful condition, having left the nest. The parent bird may be just a little bit on the scruffy side, having been in the nest for so long, but an activity picture, beautifully set with this lichen-covered branch against a plain green background. Good, gentle lighting, perfect exposure. All of the highlights and shadow detail is there, and this is definitely one to have another look at. The next is a bonnet macaque mother's meeting. A cute title for a cute picture. It's quite informative. I love the fact that we've got one baby feeding, the other being cuddled by mum, 4 of them sitting in a row having a conference on top of this log. It's a great picture, excellent capture. One or two things were not in your favour, and firstly the light being behind them, although it makes it quite romantic, you have actually lost the detail in the highlights in places on the shoulders and heads of some of the macaques. And the background has picked up a lot of light, which I think you could just afford to tone down a little bit in the processing. But a really pleasing image, wonderful to look at, and I've really enjoyed that image. The curlew with worm, well, what more could you want? The worm actually wiggling for you, and the curlew with its beak just dipped into the water, creating a ripple going outwards and breaking up the reflection. Beautiful soft light on the side of the curlew, little bit warm looking, so possibly quite low light, and perfectly sharp, well situated in the frame, doing something, great exposure. So what more could you want, really? Not a lot. And the damselfly laying eggs. As a photographer, damselflies and dragonflies are one of my own enjoyments during the summertime. And here we've got this blue-tailed damselfly ovipositing, and the leaf just dipped into the water, beautiful reflection beneath. It's cropped well, maybe a little bit tight for my own taste, but it is beautifully sharp. It's in good condition, an excellent specimen. In the processing, it might have been a good idea just to darken down that leaf, particularly the part of the leaf above the ground and as it goes into the water. The actual colour and density of the damselfly is just about right. So that's an excellent one that I'll be having another look at later on. And the death's head larva, beautifully positioned on the leaf and on the stem, with again a gorgeous out of focus background. And then overall I did feel that the exposure was just a little bit over. Again, it's not to say it's right or it's wrong, but for my taste, I think if you just take that brightness down a little bit, you actually see the detail of it and the shading of it a little bit better. On the stem of this, I'm just wondering if you've done a little bit of work where the stem has been very bright, because the stem has lost a little bit of detail and gone a little bit grey in places. So it's perhaps one to just have a look at the raw file again and just see if you can get a better editing of it. The female broad-bodied chaser is one of my favourite insects during the summer. This is so sharp, it's amazing. They are beautiful creatures, and especially the female. I find the males much easier to find perching on stems and have to search a bit more for the females. The golden colour of the abdomen is lovely. You've got it sharp from wingtip to wingtip, and the only place it's lost a little bit of detail is the shine on the thorax. The background is just a tad on the busy side. I know it's subdued, it possibly had some contrast taken out of it. The size of the chaser in the frame is just a little bit on the big side, and I'd actually prefer if it were a little bit more angled in the frame rather than straight up and down. That's just a personal preference, and had it had more space, and a little less confusion in the background. I think that would be up amongst the absolute top ones tonight. It's just one or two little things. It's in such strong competition. The heron resting has some beautiful light on it, and you can see it's looking across the pond. We can see detail in the background. The detail is a little bit intrusive, but not a lot, and the heron does stand out quite well. Again, for my own taste, it's just a little bit on the big side in the frame, and I could afford a little bit more space on the left and on the top to make it feel more comfortable for me, but size in the frame is a very personal thing. These rainbow lorikeets, they're amazing birds, aren't they? And so colourful. I can really see the attraction of presenting this picture to us. In this set of images tonight, it's a little bit outclassed, unfortunately. The setting looks slightly artificial. It may or may not be. It looks like a garden. The colours of the birds are probably even a slight bit more saturated than they are in real life, and the green in particular of the grass looks a little bit oversaturated. We've got a rope there which they're perching on, and then behind it may be, I don't know, some stones or something in the background that, together with the partly cut off bird on the left, do cause a little bit of a distraction. So a lovely one to keep for yourself, but not a strong competition image within this set of fantastic images tonight. Male bullfinches again are some of my favourite birds. The colour of this is beautiful. It looks quite natural, and the stem, I don't know if that's cotoneaster, but it's got some gorgeous colours on that really complement the colours of the bird. You've got detail on the head, little bright spark in the eye where the light has caught that, and detail right through the white feathers of the breast. I don't mind the detail lost on the tail. That's just gone into the shadows, and I don't think that's really important. Again, for me, I just like a little bit more space around it, and possibly a little bit more work done to subdue the highlights in the background. The marbled white is again a beautiful butterfly. Looking at how it's presented in this frame, it feels as though it should be presented at 90 degrees to this. In other words, turning it clockwise to the vertical position, because it just doesn't feel comfortable facing downhill with the flower coming in from the side. It may be exactly as you took it, but I want to turn, and in fact if I do turn my head, I feel it's more comfortable looking at it in a vertical orientation. The butterfly itself is good and sharp. Perhaps it's not got as much fine detail on the wings as we might expect at this magnification. I'd like to see just a little bit more. The background is gorgeous, and the size of the butterfly I think is just perfect in the frame. The newborn seal pup, again, what a gorgeous subject for a photograph. They're so cute. This one almost looks like it's smiling for the camera, flippers out in the grass and looking really comfortable and calm in that situation. I think there's been a little bit of difficulty in creating a picture of it with enough detail in the fur. I'd like to see more detail than that, and I think density wise the grass looks a little bit wishy-washy, and so does the mud behind. So again, is this just a little bit over in the exposure, and again just a little bit outclassed by some of the best work in the set tonight. I loved the sandal in tidal foam. We do say as judges that if you're doing a natural history picture, then it's always better if the subject is doing something, and here it is running along in the foam. It looks almost a little bit as if the whole shot is tipped a little bit to the left, but that might just be an optical illusion. The sandaling itself has got lovely detail. You've captured all of the whites throughout, and a pretty good shadow detail as well. If there is just anything, it's that bright coloured rock on the left hand side, and even though it makes the bird a little bit tighter in the frame, I would be tempted just to crop that off. As it is, I still think it's a really good image, and it's going to go forward into the final selection for me to look at again. The shield bug it's an amazing little bug, not very big, and so it's difficult to get it sharp from front to back unless you stack it. This may or may not be a stack, but you've certainly got a decent sharpness, and I think at this size in the frame you should be able to get a reasonable amount of depth of field without actually stacking it. So again, it's quite small and central in the frame. Possibly, if you've got enough detail, I would suggest a slight crop to remove a little bit of the outside. I don't think you need all of those leaves, and I don't think you need everything from top to bottom there, if you've got enough quality still left in the image. The turn dispute is beautiful to see. You've captured it well. The only thing as I'm looking at it on my monitor is not having the brightness in the eyes, because both of the heads are in shadow, but the wings are beautifully depicted, and the shape that they make in the frame, the size in the frame, and the sharpness is very good. I don't mind the fact that the turn, the lower turn, has got a slightly out of focus wing on the bird's right wing. That doesn't matter to me at all. So that's another one that I'll come back and have a look at again. And the turnstone running, for me, that's about the right size in the frame. Perhaps just a little bit on the big side. It could afford to be a tiny bit smaller, but I've got no real quibble with it. The background in the main is nicely out of focus, and the tones in it are generally quite gentle. Just underneath the bird's tail, however, there's quite a bright area in the background that I feel needs a little bit of work, and where the top part of the background meets the sea, there's an uncomfortable sort of almost line between them, so that's a little bit strange. Like to see just a little bit more detail on the breast of the bird in the dark shades. The whites are beautifully captured, but the dynamics of it are very good, and I will be looking at that one again. So I'm not going to give any commendeds. I'm going to start with highly commendeds, and the first highly commended is the turn dispute. The second highly commended is the damselfly laying eggs. Now to the third place, the sanderling in tidal foam. In second place, I'm going to choose curlew with worm, and in first place, blue tit feeding fledgling, although, to be quite honest, if I were judging these in an exhibition on the push button system, they would both get the same score, but you require a first, second and third, and so I've chosen the blue tits because I feel that it's just that little bit more interesting for me than the curlew, and that's just a matter of opinion on the night. They're both beautiful images. Thank you for letting me see all of your images and making some comments on them. I hope that when you see the show back, you enjoy it and enjoy looking at the images, and if you don't agree with what I said, well, just ignore me. You can actually turn me off, which you can't do when I'm at the club. So thank you again, and good night.